name is Faith Holmes. I was born in La Jolla, Southern California in 1972. My parents were hippies and we lived in a beautiful English Tudor home on the cliffs of Encinitas. I don't really believe that there are differences in race, but because of the world that we live in, I know that that is an important determination. So I am a white American. I moved to Jupiter, Florida, South Florida, when I was 6 years old with my family. My father was a boat builder and my mother was a stay-at-home mom and later became an interior-exterior landscape architect. So leaving Southern California and moving to a beach town in Southern Florida was really a different experience for us. But growing up in the ocean, swimming every day, was really a wonderful thing. My father, building boats and surfboards, took us to the ocean all the time. So growing up in South Florida was a fun experience with that kind of thing. My brother was born when I was 3.5, so I loved being a big sister. My brother was my world. His name is Dove. And my mother was a woman who saw everyone as her family. You know, our home was always open to everyone. So she was just always a seeker, always searching, always wanting to make the world a better place. And I think that's where I learned my activism from, was through my mother. I grew up in a home that was filled with diverse people. I grew up in the Baha'i community. My mom became a Baha'i when I was 3. So in some of my first earliest memories, we had Haitians and African Americans and Persians and other white folks and Guatemalans. You know, we had everyone in our home. And I thought as a child that everyone else's home was just like mine. And when I went off to private school, it was the first time that I heard the N-word. And I came home and I asked my mom about it. And my mother was like, oh no, not my child. And a friend had invited her to an African-American church way out west of town. And she took me to the service. And this was down a bunch of different dirt roads. I'm sure that we were the only white people who had ever stepped foot in this church. It was a Baptist church, a Black Baptist church. And at the end, the pastor invited all the children to go off to Sunday school. And all the children were going back. And my mother said, you know, Faith, all the kids are going to Sunday school. It's your turn to go with them. And I said, I'm gonna stay here with you. And she said, no, all the kids are going. You go too. And she said, Faith, what's going on? What's wrong? And I looked at her and I went, I'm different. And she looked at me and she said, good, now you know what it feels like. Because in South Florida, there wasn't a whole lot of diversity and there were only 1 or 2 Black children in my classes. And she said, it's your job to make them feel as comfortable in those spaces as they make you feel here today, because we are one human family, and most of the world doesn't see it that way. And growing up being a youth in South Florida and really studying the Baha'i writings, especially when it comes to race in America, and very specifically how important addressing the Black and white issue in America is, I realized that I was miseducated. And there were like 4 pages in my history books on African American history. There was slavery. There was something about how they got to be here, but not really. There was the little cabin with the smoke coming out of it that was supposedly slave quarters, but it looked like a nice cabin. And there was Dr. Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. And that was all I was taught. The knowledge and the faith that provided a historical reference made me feel like I was bamboozled. Like it made me feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything that's true about the history in America. The first novel I ever read was Malcolm X, the autobiography of Malcolm X. And when I read it, I was like, how could this not have been taught in school?